The battle against ISIL in the Iraqi city of Fallujah is crucial for the country's government. It believes many of the bombings in the capital Baghdad come from there. But as the army, with support from Shia militias, draws closer to this Sunni heartland, can they be relied upon not to make sectarian tensions worse? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the programme. I'm Martine Dennis. Now, it was the first Iraqi city to fall to the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant. That was 2 years ago. Iraqi forces are now fighting to recapture Fallujah. Troops say they've finally entered the besieged city on Monday after a week of fighting in villages on the outskirts. Civilians are desperately trying to avoid the battlefields to make it to camps for the displaced set up outside the city. An estimated 50,000 people are trapped, but they say ISIL is blocking their escape paths and landmines have been scattered liberally. Well, Fallujah is a valuable prize for the Iraqi government to win back. It's close to the capital Baghdad, so it's strategically important. It's the second biggest city in Anbar, the largest province in Iraq, which is the heartland of Sunni Muslims. Fallujah is renowned for its armed resistance to US forces in 2004. US diplomats are now warning that the Iraqi army's operation to recapture Fallujah could be hindered by local support for ISIL. All right, let's introduce our guests now. Joining us in Baghdad, Saad al-Mutalibi. He's an advisor to the Iraqi Ministers' Council. In Amman, in Jordan, Kirk Sowell, publisher of Inside Iraqi Politics and a risk consultant. Also in Baghdad, we have Ahmed Rushdie, a political analyst and director of the House of Iraqi Expertise Foundation. Can I come to you first, Saad, and ask why the Iraqi government is launching this operation now? We already understand how valuable Fallujah is to the government of Mr. Abadi.
Yes, thank you very much. It's obvious before moving into Nineveh province, we need to clean the closest ISIS or Daesh support center to Baghdad. Fallujah only about 50 kilometers away from center of Baghdad, and it has been a thorn in the body of Baghdad since 2003 actually, or it took at its highest in 2005. So this area, which is completely under the control of ISIS, with a great deal of international support or regional support, let's say, to ISIS in that region, dictate to the Iraqi government to move on ISIS in Fallujah before moving on to Mosul. And since this year, Iraqi government have already decided that 2016 will be the end of ISIS in Iraq. So it's essential that we move to Fallujah before the heat comes on in the next 2 months.
And Kirk, in Amman, the government and the Iraqi army are sounding pretty upbeat. They're suggesting that this is a routine operation that can be quickly accomplished within a couple of days even. Do you believe that that's the case?
It's going to be difficult, not because ISIL has a large army, but because what they have essentially is they've mined much of the area, and then they also have snipers, and of course they have human shields, the people, the civilians that remain there. So it's not going to be easy in terms of getting through there and getting them out without causing a large number of civilian casualties. There's not a large force, a large terrorist force there. Estimates are 300, 400, 500 total fighters from ISIL. So that's actually not the problem. It's a small number of individuals. However, it is going to be messy because of the way they are, fortified in there. And it may take more than a couple of days. But nonetheless, it's more because of the terrain and the environment than the defending forces themselves.
And Ahmed, there's the small matter of 50,000 or so people, civilians, who are trapped inside the city itself of Fallujah, and perhaps in the largest hostage situation in the world right now. How vital is it for this operation to minimise the killings and the injuries of the people who have no option but to stay? They're being held hostage, as I say.
Well, it was obvious yesterday with the supporting session that happened in the parliament headed by Dr. Salim al-Jubouri is that there must be no Iraqi bloodshed will happen. This time it will be clean, and it will only targeting for the terrorists, for the ISIS people. And the presence of the Prime Minister yesterday, it was obvious that he made promises to the parliament, to the MPs, is that we will not permit anything going to happen, anything like that going to happen in Fallujah. This is first, and secondly, we're going to make a safe paths for all these families, and at the end there will be camps that gathering all these families near Fallujah, because after the liberation the people will back to their homes. It was promises under the Parliament dome, so it was very important to happen. And today, the attacks, the main attacks, actually happened after this supporting session.
All right. Well, let's look a little bit more closely then at the composition of this force that is moving on Fallujah. A group called the Popular Mobilisation Forces, helping Iraqi troops fight for Fallujah. The PMF was first formed in 2014 to strengthen the national army. The fighters are mostly Shia Muslims who are said to be supported by the Iranian government. They've been one of the most effective forces fighting ISIL in Iraq, but they've also been accused of attacking Sunni civilians after recapturing territory from ISIL. Iraqi and Western leaders have insisted that the PMF take a secondary role in the Fallujah offensive. So, Saad, what sort of precautions are being taken given the doubts and the concerns about the conduct of some of the troops involved in this operation?
First of all, the PMUs, or the PMFs as you've called them, they are not supported by Iran, but they were formed by the historic fatwa of Ayatollah Sistani in Najaf, and has nothing to do with the Iranian government or the Iranian nation.
I'm sure a lot of people would disagree with you, Saad. I'm sure that is a question for debate. However, continue with your point, please.
Yeah, but you have to remember who formed this, who called for the public of Iraq to form the PMUs. It was Mr. Sistani, His Eminence, Imam Sistani, who ordered the people to get ready and go to France. Anyway, we move from that. All the forces have received direct orders from His Eminence Sistani day before yesterday, just before the attack on Fallujah, on how to conduct themselves with the civilians in Fallujah. And all the films and all the reports that I have been receiving on the security level shows a tremendous amount of cooperation between the public and the people of the civilians in Fallujah and the armed forces. And there are many interviews that have been aired on the Iraqi televisions on the tremendous amount of cooperation between the two people. We are giving soldiers' lives to save civilians in Fallujah. So I am sure that nothing will happen where some of the international media will jump and praise the contradiction that sometimes they put forward.
Okay, can I raise with you then some disturbing allegations that have been revealed to Al Jazeera, and that is, in these early days of this Fallujah operation, allegations that one group, the Risaloon group, a group that's commanded by an MP, a member of parliament, Mr. Adnan Chamani, that 17 people have been killed in Kama, a village on the outskirts of Fallujah. So clearly, I mean, this is information that has been given to Al Jazeera. Very alarming, wouldn't you agree?
17 civilians or 17 ISIS members?
17
course,
civilians in Kama, a village outside of Fallujah.
I know Garma. Garma is a huge or a small city. It's not just a small village. It's quite a large place. And I am sure that this is a doctored issue. And there's no reason to kill the civilians. Why kill them? And as sorry, I heard a report a few days ago that the Iraqis are attacking the females of Fallujah. But then why ISIS members dress themselves as females and leave the city? If Iraqis were attacking the females, ISIS would not wear female clothes to escape Fallujah. So these reports really will have to be taken with caution and be clear about them. And I'm sure that Risaliur would never do such thing.
Okay, Kirk. What do you make of the suggestion that there are some people, even after 2 years of ISIL rule in Fallujah, who are still so apprehensive at the prospect of this liberating force that they would rather stay under the control of ISIL, that there's almost a certain amount of loyalty still for ISIL?
Well, I suspect it would be extremely limited. There's no way, because there's obviously no freedom of speech and no freedom of assembly under ISIL. There's no way to know for sure. There is, in these Sunni areas, a limited amount of genuine support, and then there are others who have acquiesced to their control, and there are many others who just want to get rid of them. In terms of the composition of the force, I mean, the force includes all kinds of Iraqis. So there's Shia and there's Sunni. There are Shia militias, some of them tied to Iran, but there's also the army, which includes both Sunni and Shia. There's what's referred to as al-Hasht al-Ash'ari, or the tribal Hasht, which is Sunni Hasht. There's also the counterterrorism forces, which are taking the lead inside Fallujah, and they're a multi-sectarian, multi-ethnic force. And so you've got some supporters. I couldn't give you a number. There's no conceivable way, because of the nature of the environment, to say, well, is it 5%, is it 10%, is it 20%, whatever. But, ISIL has a certain number of supporters, and they have people who've acquiesced. But there's going to be a certain amount of civilian casualties. But I would say this will be a success if there's no, deliberate massacre. But there's no way to avoid some number of civilian casualties.
And Ahmed, given that we're talking around 50,000 people in the city centre, eventually, of course, government forces and its allies will win. But the question of how they carry out this operation, I return to this theme, is absolutely crucial, isn't it? As I understand it, certain roles have been given to certain sections of this fighting force.
Let's be frank. What's happening now in Fallujah is actually the main attacking teams are not Hashid. They are anti-terrorist groups that they are Iraqi forces, real trained Iraqi forces. This is first. And secondly, it was obvious yesterday in the session that it is the responsibility of the Prime Minister that there will be no Iraqi bloodshed. And if it will be happen, it will his responsibility, and there will be another political crisis according to that. This is second. And thirdly, which is also a very important issue, is that the tribal assistance to the Iraqi forces, also it's a prototype. It's a real prototype that it was succeeded in Ramadi. So I think we need to get more guarantees that there is a real plan for safe paths, for safe roads for the civilians first, and secondly, there are camps near Fallujah for these families. At the end, everyone, the media is well developed that every breach for human rights, there will be a recording for it. So please, don't let us fight ISIS and let us get rid of them. At the end, we are all Iraqis. By the way, what's happening now in Fallujah is actually paving the way for what's going to happen in Mosul on a larger scale. In Fallujah, we have 50,000. In Mosul, we have about 2 million. So it will be a prototype. If there will be a success in Fallujah, it will be transferred as it is to Mosul, and let's hope there will be also no casualties in there.
So, Saad, it sounds very much as though there is there's been a complete shift of understanding, that there is a new formula almost that is hoped that Fallujah will prove, as Ahmed said, to be a good prototype that can then be rolled out across the country.
Yes, exactly. And this prototype already was tested in Ramadi, when the area was liberated and handed over to the local al-Hashd al-Ash'ari.
But Ramadi was completely destroyed, though, wasn't it? It was completely trashed as a result. It was destroyed.
By the American Air Force. Yes, you're absolutely right. That was a good lesson, to not use the American Air Force as it was used in Ramadi, but to use precise helicopter strikes at a low level, which guarantees the exact target to be hit with complete accuracy. But yes, the idea is tremendous. We have opened a number of safe passages for the families, and this was controlled by the army and the PMUs and they worked wonderfully. We have everything is recorded. Every team was ordered to record every step of all those civilians, to photograph the civilians and of course the males, and search by females the female evacuees. So that possibly could be used in Mosul. Mosul, of course, is a completely different story. Already the people of Mosul have started an exodus out of Mosul, so I don't think the official old numbers of the inhabitants of Mosul will be the same.
Okay, what about the suggestion that at least one of the militia groups, the Badr force, has been told not to enter into the city proper, that it will be restricted to operating outside of Fallujah city centre? Is that accurate?
All the PMUs were ordered not to enter. To enter Fallujah, only the Golden Brigade, the special forces have entered. All PMUs, the public mobilization units, have stayed outside and controlling the outskirts of Fallujah. So it's nothing to do with ordering a specific group of PMUs, but this is a general order to all the fighting force. Even the army is not entering Fallujah. It's only the Golden Brigade.
And Kirk, does it sound, are you persuaded by what you've heard so far that the Iraqi government has found a formula that can work? Eventually, of course, it's going to involve, isn't it, street to street, house to house fighting in Fallujah?
Well, so far it's okay. I mean, and what Mr. Mutlubi has said is correct. So what are referred to as the hash or the PMUs, mostly Shia militias, they're on the outside. They were also involved in Karma, the sub-district of Fallujah to which you referred. They're staying out, and it's the Golden Brigade or the Special Forces, the Counterterrorism Service, which are going inside Fallujah. And incidentally, this is how it was done in Ramadi as well. So there was an enormous amount of destruction because of the way the city was mined and the use of Air Force. But it was the Counterterrorism Forces primarily, not the regular army, and certainly not Shia militias, that liberated Ramadi. So right now, and it's literally, I think just in the last 12 to 24 hours, that the special forces have gone into Fallujah. How long that's going to take, I expect it's going to take a while. If they can get this done in 2 days, as suggested, I'd be a little bit surprised. But so far, so good. Nothing completely disastrous has happened. It's going to be very hard to avoid any civilian casualties, so we'll see.
And Ahmed, do you think that enough precautions are being taken to protect, offer a way out for this vast number of people who remain trapped in the city centre?
It must be happening like that. There is no way for a mistake. We have a fight against Daesh. So everything should be planned in a way that there will no saying from Daesh for the people saying, okay, you make an alternative for us. This is the alternative. There are ethnic people going to kill you. There are ethnic troops, they're going to kill you. There's no way for something like that. And the victory in Fallujah, and let's hope that it will be a victory in Fallujah with minimum casualties, it will be the step to rebuild not only the infrastructure of Anbar, but also to rebuild the relationship with the central government in a way that we all against terrorism, and we're going to fight terrorism in a way that we're going to build our cities and our education for our children in a way that we're going to prevent terrorism to enter again to our cities, because it's still a threat. Daesh is still there. Daesh is still in the desert, and they're going to wait, and they're going to see any defect going to happen inside these cities, and they're going to get advantage for it because they are clever in doing something like that. And what's happening in Baghdad with the explosions are, I think it's a very good example for that.
So, Saad, is it a certainty then that once Fallujah is secured, that Baghdad will no longer face the kind of violence that it's seen repeatedly over and over again, and particularly within the month of May?
No, there's no guarantees. Baghdad is surrounded by by the suburbs, and the suburbs historically were pro-Saddam. And there are a number of holes in our security to these to Baghdad city center. We don't have like the M25 around London that prevent any people entering through only the official gates of Baghdad. Unfortunately, the Baghdad surrounding is filled with agricultural ways and unofficial ways that supporters of ISIL can enter themselves and their explosives into Baghdad. But a great big chunk of terrorism in Baghdad will be removed forever from the west of Baghdad. We do have some problems in the south, and we do have some small problems again in the north of Baghdad, on the outskirts or the suburbs of Baghdad.
And okay, then, Kirk, we are, I think, all assuming that at some point in time this will be a successful operation insofar as the Iraqi government retakes control of Fallujah. What needs to happen immediately? What needs to happen swiftly in order to keep the loyalties and the affiliations, if you like, of the people of this part of Anbar province focused on the government in Baghdad?
Well, of course, there's going to need to be local control. Unfortunately, the Ramadi precedent does not really help. So what's happened in Ramadi, for example, is that local Anbaris, Sunnis are running it, but they're fighting against one another. So in Ramadi, there's a fight between the Sunni Waqf and the Islamic Party, to which the governor, of which the governor is a member, over control of reconstruction funds, essentially. It's extremely dysfunctional. The Iraqi government is, they're making an effort here, but it's extremely dysfunctional within Baghdad itself, for that matter. And if we look at what's happened in Ramadi, it's going to be a very long process. Also, the Iraqi government is short of funds, being very heavily dependent on oil. It's going to, the oil price of oil will have to go way up before they have enough money for anything. So essentially, people are going to have to be patient. If they can reopen the border with Jordan, that would also help. Would help Jordan, in fact. But people are going to have to be patient. I would not expect for there to be a substantial improvement anytime really soon. It's going to take a long time. And in particular, one thing that needs to be clamped down on is this sort of infighting, as I was mentioning, even within different Sunni political factions. They need to stop fighting over resources in an area that's completely devastated. And I don't know how to make them do that.
All right, Ahmed, so given that the Iraqi army, the Iraqi government can win this battle, can it win the peace in Fallujah and more broadly in Anbar province?
Well, it depends. It depends how the Iraqi forces were going to act after the liberation of Fallujah, which is a very important issue. What I've heard, and I have so many plans and have so many ideas about Fallujah. One of the most important plans is that the Iraqi army itself can rebuild some infrastructure inside Fallujah by the name of the Iraqi army, which is a very important issue, saying that we're all Iraqis and there is no ethnicity between us. If you are Sunni, I'm Shia, but at the end we are Iraqis. And even the talking about the suburbs around Baghdad, and it's a hostile area against the government, I think it's not easy to manage to talk on these issues on the liberation, inside the liberation of Fallujah. We need to be, all of us, we need to be a real partners against terrorism. At the end, just as I said, at the end, still Daesh there in the desert.
Okay,
if we are not managing to put all arsenals against Daesh, especially rising up our Iraqi nationality, there will be no way that we're going to end the terrorism of Daesh.
Okay, Ahmed, last word to you, Saad. If you could be very quickly, please. Is the Iraqi government prepared to throw resources at Fallujah and surrounding areas once it's won the battle?
Oh yes, definitely. We are asking international aid, international support, regional aid and support, trying to mobilize that aid to rebuild these areas at good standards, and we are opening our doors to all international help, and in particular Sunni states that we need to catalyze them to move faster and present the aid when it's needed, in particular these days and in the future when we start rebuilding these cities.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Saad Al-Mutalibi, Kirk Soul and Ahmed Rushdie. Thank you all very much indeed. And as ever, thank you for watching. Remember, you can see the programme anytime you like on the Al Jazeera website, aljazeera.com. For more discussion, you can go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can also join the conversation on Twitter, our handle @AJ Inside Story. From me, Martine Dennis, and the whole team here in Doha, it's bye for now.